This is the 2018 Infiniti Q60 Red Sport 400. Based on the Q60 3.0T, this one has more of everything you like. More power, more grip, more brakes, and yes, more speed. The Red Sport package adds a degree of sharpness that's missing from the standard Q60. This is a very, very good thing because, for me, that coupe fell just a little bit short in a couple of key ways. My problem with that car is it looked really great. It was this sexy coupe and it sort of promised this performance with the athletic stance and the good looks, and it didn't really deliver on that. It's a solid vehicle, but it was kind of sedate, more of a sort of cushy luxury grand touring coupe, if we can call it that. Now, this Red Sport is a different vehicle altogether. I'm impressed at how Infiniti has sort of breathed over almost every major performance component of this vehicle. It makes it a pretty fun vehicle to drive, and unlike the standard Q60 2.0 and Q60 3.0, I actually want to drive this vehicle quickly, so that's what we're going to focus on here today. Now, we've got to start all of this by talking about the engine, which is the beating heart of this Q60 Red Sport 400. As the name suggests, 400 horsepower, 350 foot-pounds of torque. That's a gain of 100 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds of torque over the standard 3.0T, and man, have they put that to good effect here. Stated 0 to 100 time of 4.5. If you look online, you'll find lots of owners who have got below that, 4.3, 4.4 in ideal conditions. Of course, helping that is a standard all-wheel drive system. It's the only system you can get here in Canada. In the States, there's a rear-wheel drive option. Now, the all-wheel drive system here is rear bias, so it'll default to rear-wheel drive, and then when it requires it, it'll send up to 50% to the front wheels. Now, there's some performance enthusiasts in Canada who are going to be bummed that there's no true rear-wheel drive option, but let me tell you what, okay, we've got slick roads right now, foot to the floor, right into the torque curve, no problem with traction. This thing has tons of grip, so if you live in a cold climate or you deal with moisture, this is just safer. I'm always a big advocate of all-wheel drive. This is a great looking vehicle to begin with. It's athletic, it's aggressive looking, but at the same time almost sort of feminine. It's got some curves to it, especially around the rear, the front grille, the front headlights. It's just an excellent looking vehicle in my mind, and it's made even better by the Red Sport pack, which changes the front and rear bumpers, gives it some more aggressive sounding and looking exhaust pipes out the back and various trim pieces as well. Everybody that sees this car likes it, especially in this blue metallic paint, which is a stunner. I love it. Up close in the sun, it's got tons of flake in it, and it just looks really attractive. Now, the wheels are upgraded this year. They're standard 20-inch wheels. They're sort of a graphite-looking magnesium color to them. They look awesome. This is a stunning-looking vehicle in my mind, one of the most attractive in the class, made even better by the addition of the Red Sport 400 trim. The Red Sport Performance additions to this Q60 make me want to spend a lot more time behind the wheel, so it's important that this interior is tight, and by and large, yeah, it's pretty good. If you cast your minds back to my previous review of the Q60, there are some things I liked, and there are some things I wasn't a huge fan of, but we'll start just generally speaking with the design. I kind of like it. Aesthetically, I think it's cohesive with the exterior, kind of swoopy, kind of organic, good mix of materials, 3 primary materials, upper door black leather with contrast stitching. We're equipped with standard leather seats, which are heated and perforated, and they're sort of an off-white cream color in this car, and I love that spec. I think it looks really good, especially in contrast to the sort of metallic sparkling blue exterior paint. I could take or leave this sort of silver white carbon weave looking trim. I'm not a huge fan of that, but whatever, you'll make up your mind on that one. Elsewhere, comfortable place to be. As I said, multi-adjustable seats here with lumbar support, great for tall drivers like myself, even though this is a small car. The steering wheel is leather wrapped and it's a nice size. We've got magnesium shift paddles that are nice to the touch, which they responded better to the transmission. And the feel of the controls and the movement of everything is pretty good, but everything really falls apart when we start to talk about this center stack, which is kind of brutal, and I don't think I'm exaggerating there. The way it works is this. Upper screen number 1, we'll call it, is navigation. You get your map there. It's a touch screen, but it's also controlled via this small wheel down here on the transmission tunnel. Screen number 2 is just cycle through your options. It's a control panel, so vehicle settings, radio, HVAC, and so on. You can all control via that second screen. Now, the big problem is that screen. It's really laggy, it's slow, you fat finger things. So if you're trying to press an arrow to go left, often it doesn't respond, then it responds, or you touch another arrow, but your finger doesn't hit exactly in the right spot, so you end up hitting the settings panel, and it visually doesn't look great. It doesn't respond well to the touch. It's difficult to use while you're driving. And here's the problem. The competition have some really good systems, and we know that more and more the user experience is defined by how you interface with technology. It's weak in this car. I really think Infiniti has to go back to the drawing board and work this out. So what else on this vehicle has been changed to make it that much more dynamic and engaging to drive? Well, let's start with the brakes and suspension. So we've got the same multi-link rear suspension setup on this vehicle, but the suspension's been tuned a little bit. It's a little bit tighter, a little more direct, a noticeable difference over the standard Q60 3.0T. The brakes, they're also bigger and they can bring you down to a stop in a hurry, and the brake calipers are painted red because race car, which automatically means they're better than the standard version. Now, my demonstration model is equipped with the DAS system. That stands for Dynamic Adaptive Steering, and it is a drive-by-wire system that has been universally panned by the automotive media for the last couple of years for basically feeling vague and very strange and disconnected from the road. So what is DAS? It's a drive-by-wire system. That means that under regular operation, there's no physical connection between what I'm doing here and what's happening with the front wheels. Now, there's a redundant physical connection in case this system were to fail, but under normal driving conditions, it's purely digital. It's like a video game. There are some advantages to that, so it's more efficient. It allows for custom tuning and to change the ratio to adapt for different driving scenarios. But the disadvantage is a feeling of disconnection from the road, which in a performance vehicle is bad news. Now, I did not like this system when I tested this car last year. I thought it was vague. I thought when driving down a straight line on a highway, for example, there were all these weird micro adjustments. It felt like I was always driving in a side breeze, which was annoying. But on this, something's changed. And it changed so much so that I emailed Infiniti and said, hey, what's going on here? And they got back to me and said, the main changes with this vehicle are the suspension tuning, and they also include standard 20-inch wheels now, which look lovely. And they have sticky summer performance tires as standard equipment. So they did need to recalibrate the DAS system just slightly to adjust for those, but nothing substantial. So I just think overall as a package, dynamically speaking, the DAS system with this new retuned suspension and these better performance tires have really paid dividends, and this feels pretty good to me. If you're motivated by fuel economy, you may want to look elsewhere because this Red Sport hasn't been that great. Around the city of Toronto, a couple hundred kilometers this week, I averaged just about 15 liters per 100K. However, I'm at about 500K on the clock, mostly highway driving, kind of ideal conditions, and I've worked that average down to 12.1. Now, point of comparison, I drive all of the time, thousands of kilometers behind the wheel of a Mercedes C43, which is a competitor, equal performance, if a little bit less horsepower, and I can very, very easily average well under 10 liters per 100K on the highway, and mixed driving in the life cycle of that vehicle, I'm at 13. So just to give you a point of reference, fuel economy, definitely not the #1 selling point of this Q60 Red Sport. Now, the weak link for me here is the transmission. The only one on offer is an automatic unit from Infiniti. It's got 7 speeds. It's the same one you'll find in the standard Q50 and Q60. And when I reviewed it a year ago, I described it as being kind of lazy, kind of clumsy. I think the phrase I used was it matches the character of this vehicle. But this is the Red Sport. They've really upped the performance quotient here. More power, more performance, more emotion. But the transmission hasn't really changed, and so that gap between the experience and how the transmission has responded to it has widened, which has made its shortcomings more obvious to me. When I put these lovely magnesium shift paddles into good use, it's very slow to respond to it. This is actually much better in automatic mode, where it seems pretty intuitive. There is blipping on the downshifts, although not as aggressive as some others, and in general it gets the job done. But when I put it over into manual mode to have some fun on a twisty road like that one we just came off of, a little bit disappointing. Now, another difference between the standard Q60 and this Red Sport is we have the addition of a Sport Plus mode in the drive mode selector. So all Q60s are going to get a snow mode, a standard mode, which makes me laugh. I guess they didn't resort to some funny branding exercise and call it like optimized luxury mode, but it's basically a comfort mode. And then we have Sport Plus, which is going to dial all those nannies back and give you an aggressive feel with sharper steering and stiffer suspension. And then we also have a individual personal mode, it's called, which will allow you to decouple those things. So you can go with firm suspension and a light throttle response, but tight steering if you want. Now, I have never been in the car before that has a wider gap between the Eco mode and the Sport Plus mode. This vehicle in Eco mode is absolutely terrible. The throttle pedal is so heavy and goes nowhere when you put it down to the floor, and the steering just gets kind of odd and slow, and the whole vehicle just feels terrible. Even comfort mode, I find, it still feels a bit cumbersome, but if you put it into Sport Plus, everything gets tighter, gets firmer, and the sort of dynamic character of the vehicle actually matches the straight line performance. In the Canadian marketplace, you can get yourself into a base model Q60 for well under $50,000. Upgrade to the 3.0T, that features a 3-liter turbocharged V6, and you're looking at a well-equipped example for around 55 grand. My demonstration model was the range-topping, fully loaded Q60 Red Sport 400 and retails for $66,540 plus tax. The Red Sport 400 fixes many of the performance deficiencies found in the standard Q60, and it does so for much less money than major competitors from Germany. It's an attractive coupe with plentiful straight-line performance, and it manages to retain a high level of day-to-day comfort. This remains a solid option, maybe an off-the-board pick, for someone looking for a luxury sports coupe not originating in Europe. Not perfect by any stretch, but a compelling package nonetheless.